You already know who it is. I'm back, Ty Talk Sports, with another video, and today was one of the biggest days in quite a while for Spurs fans, including myself. The NBA Draft Lottery was this afternoon, and the Spurs were able to land not one, but two lottery picks in this year's upcoming draft, which will take place on June 26th. First of all, they were able to land the 8th pick from the Toronto Raptors after the 2023 Jakob Poeltl trade, which Toronto sent a first-round pick that would be top 6 protected, and it conveyed at pick 8, which is absolutely huge, and I'll get later as to why. And then their own pick was able to land in the 4 spot. Now, call me crazy, but I'm okay and completely content with the fact that the Spurs did not land the number 1 overall pick. This draft class is not good. We all know that Alexander Sarr is going number 1, and then apart from that, there's really no other just clue as to what could happen. While I think Sarr should be the number 1 option, Atlanta might not even take him. And I'll get into it at another point, not in this video, but in another video, explaining the impact of how that actually affects the Spurs with Atlanta getting the first overall pick. But it really is. You have no idea what could happen because there's not really a lot of teams who really know what they need from this draft. I mean, Detroit won 14 games and they're the 5 pick. That's a very talented basketball team, but they haven't been able to put it together. Guys like Cade Cunningham, Asar Thompson, Jaden Ivey, Isaiah Stewart. That's how interesting this draft is. It really is. But the Spurs have some sort of direction. They have Victor Wembanyama, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, but apart from that, this team is bad. This team is very bad. There's maybe like 1 or 2 pieces on there that could stay. I love Trey Jones, actually, so I think I would love to see him around next season and potentially as a long-term backup point guard, but he's not going to be the point guard who leads the Spurs to a championship, and we're going to talk about that. There's a lot of ways that the Spurs could go about this draft, and I'm here to explain what those ways could be. The 3 ways that they could trade for their point guard, and I said trade, but you could trade for one, and we'll get to that later in regards to some of the guys who might be available, and then they could just go for the draft. And at pick 4, they have the ability to do that. They have Nikola Topic there who might be available. I could see him going to Washington at 2. You know, from Serbia. Kid's going to be 18 years old right now. He's 6'6", 200 pounds. Pretty good archetype, averaging 15 points per game, 6 assists, and 3.5 rebounds on 50% from the floor, but a very shaky 30.6% from downtown. And I wasn't really sold on Topic until I watched his film just before filming this. But this kid is the most polished passer coming out of a draft we've seen in quite some time. He's a very patient point guard, plays with a lot of patience on the court, and just waits for defenders to give him the looks that he wants. Nothing is forced from the way he plays the offensive game. He's a very elite floor general and could be one of the best for a while. His court vision is absolutely ridiculous. Sometimes his first pass option, which is good, may not even be his best one. This is how wide that this kid sees the floor and is able to create shots, and he doesn't turn the ball over. 2.38 assist to turnover ratio. I mean, my goodness. He takes care of the basketball. His offensive game outside of floor creation is a little iffy. He's able to come downhill and collapse defenses and create shots for other teammates, and he is one of the better downhill scorers in this draft class. And he's going to be one of those guys who gets you assists from the get-go, but he's undeveloped as a very dynamic ball handler, and that's what the Spurs are missing. They're missing someone who can come in and be one of the shiftiest, most explosive scorers with the ability to space create, because Devin Vassell is this team's only space creator, and they need more of those, and we'll get to one in a few minutes. He has a really explosive first step and long strides, very skilled at controlling his speed. That's not something that you see from a kid at 18 years old, but that's what Topic has in his game. The ability to control how he stops and goes. His feel for the game is very polished, very bright, and could only get better under someone like Greg Popovich. I know, the Spurs need a generational floor general. They do. They have, once again, their generational talent in Victor Wembanyama. The amount of times I just said general, who thought you could do that in a matter of 15 seconds? They have Victor Wembanyama, so they have their guy who could lead the Spurs to championships. No one, including myself, expected Wemby to be this good in his rookie season. He was at lock, a top 20 player, arguably top 15. So now, what do you need? Well, they need a floor general, and they have that in Trey Jones, but they don't have a dynamic scorer. And this is not what Topic is. He's not someone who's going to create a lot of highlights. He's not someone who creates his own space with the ball in his hands, or really doesn't create his own shots. A lot of his shots come off ball. He's a pure point guard who can kind of look for shots when he's standing in a corner, but he doesn't knock them down efficiently either. 30.6% from downtown isn't good, and so when defenders slack off of you, eventually you have to start making them. Now, he's only 18. That will come. I have no doubts it can come, but I just don't know if that's something I want to get right off the bat and hope pans out. I want someone who's going to come in and be an elite scorer from the get-go and with the ability to continuously grow his wide variety to score. I love Topic. I love the way that he sees the floor and can become one of the best game managers, but he's unathletic. He doesn't shoot the ball well. He plays a lot of downhill basketball to the basket. You're not going to see him create a lot of shots, and I think Topic is a good prospect, but he's not the one that I think the Spurs should have their eyes after. The one that I do is 19 years old from Kentucky. No, it's not Reed Sheppard. I don't even think I'm not even sure if he's 19, but if they draft Reed Sheppard with the 4th overall pick, I'm going to lose my mind because it's Rob Dillingham. Now, he's a little undersized, and by little, he's definitely undersized. 6'2", 176 pounds. Last year, he averaged 15 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists on shooting splits of 47.5 from the floor and 44 from 3. This is the best guard in this class and one of the most raw talented players in this very weak draft class. I mean, Alexander Sarr is up there, Donovan Clingan is up there, and his national championship run with UConn certainly has risen up his stock, but Dillingham might be the most raw potential guard in this class and the best guard in this class. Everything I mentioned about Topic, the lack of ability to create shots, unable to score at his own will, that's everything that Dillingham is. He is that. Dillingham is someone who is elite at creating his own space and his own shots. He's very shifty. One of the most dynamic ball handlers that we've seen in quite some time, and that's why he is so good at creating space. You'll see him put dudes on highlight reels. You'll see him go for quick jabs between the legs. You'll see him do things like that because he's able to, and that's something that his size allows him to do. With him being smaller, 6'2", he is able to be very shifty and very quick compared to the rest of, maybe the more modern NBA. I mean, Luka's like 6'6", 6'7", Shea's 6'5", I think, maybe 6'4". And that's something that Dillingham kind of has. He has the ability to be quicker, more explosive off the dribble, and he's very capable at finishing through traffic when he does that. He uses his ability to dribble to blow by defenders, and he's really good at finishing through traffic, and his athleticism lets him glide through the contact through defenders, and he can finish through traffic. He needs to develop a consistency at doing that, but there's so much upside there as well. A pick and roll scorer. That's also what he is. And he played alongside Zavonir Visic in his one season with Kentucky, and you kind of saw that chemistry start to work. So if it worked with Big Z, why won't it work with Victor Wembanyama? I do think it's something Wembanyama needs to improve on, is his ability to plant firm screens, because I don't think he's good at that yet, but eventually he will be. But if you put Dillingham next to him, he's going to get some points. 50.6% on ball handling shooting as a pick and roll handler, and 1 point per possession. 43% as a handler on pick and roll threes, 12 of 28. That is dangerous. Now, the Devin Vassell and Victor Wembanyama pick and roll, we saw it minimally, but it worked almost, half the times that we watched it. There was generation of offense, and Dillingham is going to do that. They're going to add a elite ability to score with the ball in his hands and in the pick and roll. You want to guard Victor Wembanyama? Okay, Dillingham will step out from 3, or he'll shoot a long 2. Or he'll blow by defender and get to the rack and pass it to Wembanyama or go up for a bucket. 38th in the nation on three-point shooting. 66 of 144, 44%, 1.42 points per possession on catch and shoot threes. The Spurs need shooters. They traded away their best shooter last year at the deadline in Doug McDermott. Malachi Branham wasn't cutting it. Julian Champagnie also wasn't cutting it. They lacked consistency and lacked the ability to be a dangerous option. You could sack off of them, because you didn't know if they were going to make or miss it. But half the times they missed it. Maybe half the times they made it. But you don't want to put your money on dudes being inconsistent. Dillingham can provide that. They could look to him every night. And don't forget, he was the sixth man on this Kentucky team, which is insane. And he's a starting caliber point guard on any other team in the nation. But Kentucky was also very good. Reed Sheppard and Antonio Reeves were the leaders of that backcourt. So we'll see how it pans out, because he'll be a starter wherever he goes. He can initiate offense on his own and create off-ball looks through cuts. Or he can wait till the ball gets in his hands, go downhill, or he can catch and shoot. He's a very versatile scorer and could be one of the most versatile in the league. He almost reminds me a little bit of kind of like a Darius Garland archetype. A smaller, so shifty, explosive, really crafty handle, and a versatile scorer. That's what I see in Dillingham. Now, he's not the most developed passer. He's not. He averaged 4 assists last year, but there is a lot of upside as what he can do. He is a score-first guy, but he's very unselfish. He has a 30% assist rate. He's a lob passer. I mentioned the pick-and-roll aspect with Zavonir Visic at his time in Kentucky, and we saw that work, especially as a pick-and-roll handler. You saw him create lobs or saw him create cuts when he drew defenders. His big men were able to cut to the rack, and he was able to create lobs. He was just able to make basic reads, and sometimes that's really just what you want a base with. If he's able to make basic reads, through cuts, through double teams, then you have something to work with, and you are able to fine-tune that to where it becomes a more consistent and dangerous option throughout the rest of his career. His offensive game is also so versatile that it's going to open up the playmaking aspect of his game. Yes, at 6'2", he's undersized, and that's going to generate his offensive game, but his defensive game is where it falters the most of it. And some of that might be on him. He lacks some effort and engagement on defense, especially off ball. And when he gets beat off a screen, he kind of gives up on plays. That's not good. It's just not good. He's not a good pick and roll dominant defender. But in every game where the Spurs will face an elite point guard, Jeremy Sochan is going to be the one who defends that. And that's okay. And if Dilly gets passed up, guess who's underneath the rim? 254 blocks last season. Victor Wembanyama. If he gets blown by, maybe sometimes it's for the better, because Dillingham knows that Wembanyama is going to be there and going to challenge and reject anything that comes in his path. There is some positives to his defensive game, though. He needs to be able to improve his ability to apply pressure and isolations, but he's so shifty that his footwork is able to cause turnovers, to apply pressure. And I mentioned it needs improvement, but there is some upside when you watch him play defense. And something he's pretty underrated at is how he can create turnovers with his lateral shiftiness in his hands. He had 1 steal per game last year, so I think that's something that could be a pretty eye-popping trait, because while he's not going to be your best defender, if he can create turnovers through, dribbles, through isolation, then that's all you need. Because Jeremy Sochan is going to be, I think, one of the best perimeter defenders in the next 3 to 4 years. Victor Wembanyama is already the best defender in the world. No question about it. I get it. Rudy Gobert won the Defensive Player of the Year, but we all know it should have been Wembanyama. And if Dillingham is struggling on defense, well, maybe there's another guy that the Spurs could grab. And this could be at pick 8, and it's Ron Holland from the G League Ignite. He will be 19 years old by the time he gets to the Spurs. He is 6'8", 206. The Spurs need a wing badly. Keldon Johnson and Julian Champagnie are not for the future. Keldon could be a 6-man, but he's not a starting caliber small forward. He's a cone on defense, and he struggles with consistency and decision-making. And Ron Holland is so raw and so highly potential that he's going to be one of those guys who could be a game changer in a long term, maybe even a baby Kawhi Leonard in reference to 2014 for Victor Wembanyama. His draft stock plummeted after he suffered a thumb injury at the end of January, and he received surgery for it in order to make a full recovery, which I completely understand. He averaged 19.5 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2.5 steals per game. 44% from the floor, 24% from three. His biggest impact is going to come on the defensive side of the ball. Now, he needs to step up his footwork, but he has the potential to be one of the best perimeter defenders in the league. He can guard the 1 through 4. He doesn't jump on pump fakes. He just puts his hands up and avoids fouling. He has good lateral instincts. Like I said, his footwork will need some adjustment and some improvement, but there is a lot of upside in the way he is able to defend, especially in isolation. He has good defensive instincts. He can break up passing lanes and dribble handoffs, and he's not really known as a shot blocker, but his athleticism is so raw that anything in front of him can be swatted through his elite verticality. He plays with so much effort. This is a Spurs player. He plays with a lot of effort, and his defense it generates a chunk of his offense. As I mentioned, he's able to break up passing lanes, and he has good defensive instincts. He breaks up the passing lanes, and he's gone. He's a high flyer. He is Hollywood. He's Showtime. That's what it is. And there's so much upside in the way he can attack the basket. As I just mentioned, his transition ability. Once you see him get that ball, he is gone, and he can do that on the offensive side of the floor too when he maybe, is standing in the corner and gets the ball in his hands. Maybe he pump fakes or he just blows by. He's very physical and he can take long strides. His handle is something that needs to be improved on, but I think there's some upside in it to where he's going to be able to become a better handler. Now, he does have an issue with taking care of the basketball around big men, but maybe sometimes it's just, maybe he wants to dump it off to Wembanyama, or he's looking to draw an opposing defender and find an open three. Maybe Devin Vassell's open or Rob Dillingham, but we'll see. Here's the thing about his shooting, though. His three-point shooting, it needs work. He has some good mechanics, and he has a pretty decent fluidity in his jump shot, but they are yet to become consistent. When I watched him play, I was like, man, he shoots the ball really well, and then I watched more. I was like, hey, his mechanics maybe need some work. I've seen that sometimes his hand placement underneath the ball sometimes struggles to stay consistent, so we'll see how that goes. But he's also an indecisive shooter. And he can shoot it. He shot 24% from three last year. Obviously, you want that to improve to about league average, which is mid-30s. But if he lets it fly with confidence, I think he could become a very dangerous shooter. And you can make the argument that he went straight from high school to the NBA G League, the G League Ignite. So there wasn't really an adjustment period because going from high school three-pointer to NBA three-pointer is a very, very big adjustment. And he wasn't someone who was a shooter in high school, so when they backed that line up a couple feet, it probably threw him off a little more, which is why he hasn't been able to develop a consistent, dangerous ability to shoot from downtown. But his fluidity in his jump shot is so bright that you're going to be able to develop that just shooting consistency. And he's going to be able to do that. I think he has the ability to be one of the best defenders in this class, but he needs to be more disciplined off ball and just work on closeouts. That's one of the biggest areas where he flaws, and the Spurs are not asking him to really be an offensive threat. They aren't. They want him to be an off-ball slasher where he can catch and shoot when asked to, and they want him to be able to defend the 1 through 4. Imagine a defensive front court of Holland, Jeremy Sohan, and Wembanyama. All dudes under 21 years old, all dudes who could be one of the top defenders at any given moment. Holland and Sohan is a very, very good wing defensive presence. And then Wembanyama, as I mentioned, I believe he is the best defender in the world. I could even see, though, there's so much raw talent that maybe the Spurs end up having to take someone like maybe a Cody Williams out of Colorado. I really like his game. I didn't watch a lot of film on him, and I still have yet to, but I wanted just to mention some prospects that I am super, super high on and I think have the potential to land in San Antonio. I think Dillingham is around that 4 to 7 range, and Holland's draft stock, as I mentioned, plummeted due to the fact he sustained that thumb injury and hasn't played since January. And a lot of teams aren't really wanting to maybe take a risk on that, but if I'm Brian Wright, I'm taking a risk. There is so much raw talent in the guys that I have mentioned, so I'm going to be super excited to see what happens. If I had to rank these guys, though, I want Dillingham at 4, Holland at 8. I love Topic, but I'm not high on his ability to score in his own ways, and that's what the Spurs need. I get it. We need someone who can manage the floor, create shots for other players, and especially run pick and rolls with Wembanyama, but they are really, really missing offensive help. Trey Jones, love him, backup floor general. He's going to be great. They need someone who can score the basketball, and that's why I favor Rob Dillingham. That's why I have him as my number one. And I'll make a video later about Trae Young, because we know how that saga has been going, and it is so wild to see how this could potentially play out now that Atlanta has the number one overall pick. You want a floor general and a scorer, that's what you get in Trae Young, and I'm going to talk about how I think the Spurs could still pull off this deal. And if you want to see that, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss when I upload that video. I'm back from college, a lot of stuff has been going on, so there's going to be some fire content coming from Ty Talk Sports. I'm about to upgrade and get some more things for my setup, because I'm going to invest in this channel. I've had so much love, especially on Twitter recently. I've gained over 400 followers, so I'm so thankful for all of you guys over there. And if you're coming from Twitter, hit that subscribe button, and if you're coming from YouTube, go check me out on Twitter. I post a lot of like Arkansas content as I do, and I'm going to be doing some more of that. There's going to be a lot of stuff coming, and I am so excited for what this summer is going to bring from Ty Talk Sports. So, like I said, if you did enjoy, please like the video, subscribe if you're new to see the grind that we're about to go on, and until next time, this is Ty Talk Sports, signing off. I'll see y'all.